All right, so we're going to talk about radical denominators, right? So radical does not mean the actual definition of radical, right? In math, we're talking about this square root symbol. Sorry, I don't know what that was. So here, right, our goal with radical denominators is not to have them in the denominator, right? So our goal is to have no radicals in the denominator, right? So have no these guys. Okay, have no radicals in the denominator. And right, it might seem silly, and you're like, well, I don't know why I can't just have it like that anyway. I'm not really solving anything. No, we're not solving something for x or anything like that. So it seems kind of pointless. But we just want to basically understand how these things work, okay? So if I have example 2 in the book here, I have 4 minus root 2 on the top. And on the bottom, I have 4 plus 3 root 2. So 4 plus 3 root 2. So to figure out exactly what this value is, it's a little bit hard, right? But I could type this into my calculator, of course, and go from there. But what I want to do is make it a little more simplified. And so what I have to remember here is that there's these things called conjugates, okay? And conjugates are not super complicated. They say that I just flip the sign of my last term, okay? And so I leave everything else the same. So conjugate, right? Well, if I have A plus B, then, right, what is the conjugate of A plus B? Well, it's simply A minus b, okay? Nothing too crazy going on. So what I can do here, right? Well, we talked about this, right? If I multiply by 1, right? So if I say this right here, I say multiply by 1. I say this every so often, right? Just to emphasize the point. That's what I'm doing a lot in math, is multiplying by 1 to manipulate things. So here, right, what I want to manipulate, well, I want to get rid of my denominators here, so I multiply the bottom by 4 minus 3 root 2 because that is the conjugate of the denominator. And so if I do this, right, 4 minus 3 root 2 on the top, then what am I doing except multiplying by 1, okay? Because 4 minus 3 root 2 over 4 minus 3 root 2 is 1, okay? And I have to remember that I still am doing this distribution, so it's multiplying like this and like this. And if you remember from before, right, if I have difference of squares on the bottom here, my terms that are going to come out of this are simply going to be my first and my last. So what do I have here? Well, I have 4 times 4 on the bottom, which means I have 16. So I simply am going to have 16. And then my last two terms, right, I have 3 root 2 times minus 3 root 2, which gives me, what, 3 times minus 3, which gives me minus 9. So I have minus 9 times 2, okay? And that'll give me something in a second. I'll figure that out later. But this top one gives me a little bit more trouble because I have 4 times 4 that gives me 16, right? So I'm doing this top one here. It gets a little messy with all these arrows, so I just write this first one. So I have 16, and 4 is going to be multiplied by minus 3 root 2. So if I have minus 3 times 4, then it means I have minus 12 root 2. Okay, and then I have minus 4 root 2. And then I'm going to subtract this last one here. So maybe I'll try to draw this one, right? But I'm going to be multiplying that guy. So then I have a minus times a minus, which means I have a plus, right? So I'll have plus 3 times the number 2. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now on the bottom here, right? So that was the top and the bottom. Let's change the color here again. I have, the bottom's easy. I have 16 minus what? 16 minus 18. What's 16 minus 18 except for minus 2, right? And then here I have two things to combine, right? These two middle things. So I have minus 12 root 2 I have minus 4 root 2. What's that except for what? Minus, right? If I owe somebody 12 and I owe somebody 4, then I owe them 16 total. So I have minus 16 root 2. And then this first term and the last term here, right? I have 16, and then I have plus 3 times 2, which is 6. So I have 16 plus 6. That means I have 22. Okay, so I have 22 minus 16 root 2 over minus 2. And if I want to reduce this, because everything is divisible by 2 here, then I will end up having 11 minus 8 root 2 over minus 2. So I can leave it like this. Or I could simplify it further if I want to move the negative to the top or whatever. I'm going to leave it like this. And that's pretty much it. I mean, here, I guess I can show you real quick if you want to see, right? What would I do? Well, I could say that I have minus 11 over 2, right? And then for this one, it would be positive. So then I say, okay, now I have what? I have plus 4 root 2. Maybe that's a tiny bit simpler than what I wrote above. But anyway, they're the same thing, and they would both be acceptable answers.